My dear one-seers, my spinner and I greet you. How's it going? Hope your day is good. It's actually raining right now, believe it or not. What a yo-yo, huh? Our weather's been a yo-yo. One moment it was super, super, super hot. Now it's really, really cold. What a yo-yo. So, I send you my warm regards through this video. Hopefully this message finds you well. Welcome to Module 4. And of course, we have this week brought to us by our fun fact of the week. And our fun fact of the week is actually about cats. Check this out. A cat rubs against people not only to be affectionate, but also to mark out its territory with scent glands around its face. The tail area and paws also carry the cat's scent. A lot like dogs, huh? Dogs mark their territories and they work with a system of scents. Dogs urinate on everything and they mark their territories like that. But cats rub themselves on things and on people. So the next time Mr. Whiskers is rubbing himself against you, sure, he's being affectionate, but also he's marking his territory, which is you. What a funny thought, huh? Okay, that's our fun fact of the week. Let's take a look at our syllabus to see our signposts for the week. This week we have our very first writing workshop, and it's for our stereotyping essay. As you can see here, you're going to have a rough draft, which you're going to post by this Wednesday, about 11:59 p.m. And the Canvas system will automatically distribute drafts, 3 drafts, to those of you who submitted in a draft on time. And you're going to be responsible for leaving feedback to your classmates by Sunday, which will be April 17th by 11:59 p.m. Now, I do have to make an important point. The only way that the Canvas system will distribute drafts is if you actually submit one in on time. So it's very important to get it in by its deadline, because the Canvas system is programmed to distribute drafts only to those who submitted one in on time. This is why you can't use your late homework pass. So get it in on time. Let's take a look at our Canvas page, see what we got going for the week, see what's popping this week. Okay, so last week, not only did I present to you our first essay, the stereotyping essay, based on Raymond Carver's Cathedral. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And I additionally presented you with the textual analysis lesson. So this is important since it's a literature class and we are analyzing texts, right? And as a continuation of that, in this module, since we learned from last week's lesson that sure, a text is something written, but because it's a constructed artifact that carries meaning, text can also be, in this case, a cartoon. Yes. So somebody can ask you, hey, what'd you do in school this week? You could say, we saw a cartoon. Not only any cartoon, but Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches. So what you're going to do, much like with the task of last week on the handout, where you looked at not only propaganda posters, but also the article and such. But the thing was, you know how you had that chart where you had denotation and connotation? Well, simply put, watch this with a pen and paper in hand and jot things that you notice. That can be anything from a golden quote, something that stands out, or, you know, if you just want to paraphrase a little detail that you noticed, that could be, what did the characters do? And do you see anything happening that catches your eye, essentially? So after you do that, then you're going to move from that denotation to connotation. Remember what we did last week. To get into connotation, You consider indirect suggestions, things like social cultural overtones. So you move beyond just what lies at the surface in order to get deeper, right? So you consider indirect suggestions. I do have this chart here that is helpful. So the surface level details, that's like a plot, like what's happening in the plot. If you consider what's happening in the plot, and maybe consider how something's being represented, then that's connotation, right? Another one too, like a big thing about fiction, guys, is that there's a conflict, right? And how that conflict is resolved, the conclusion of the fiction, is a important part, because it's ultimately what you as a reader, as a viewer, are left with, right? So the way that something is resolved is ultimately your takeaway, yeah? So it's a very important place, so pay attention to that as you're watching this. What happens in the end in this cartoon of the Sneetches, and what do you think that means? Like, if you were to connect that to real life, answer the so what question. That's when we get into connotation. That's what implication is. Like, why does that matter? Make connections to real life. Consider these things, like, what could this message parallel in real life? Much like what we did with our work on the cathedral essay. I know that aside from looking at just how stereotyping is presented in this story, you're also making connections to real life. So how does that parallel what we've lived, and why is that important? So same thing here. It's like, well, what's the message, and how does the cartoon present that message, and why is that important? And actually, that leads me to the task for this week. You're going to create a thesis for this cartoon, like pretending that you're writing a paper on it. What would you write as a thesis? So remember that with a thesis, you introduce a topic, say something about the topic, and you support it, right? So that's what identification is. Claim, which is you say something. So identification is introduce a topic. Claim is you say something about the topic, and direction is your supporting reasons for your claim, for what you just said, right? Now you're going to write a thesis, pretending you're going to write a paper for this. And check this out. Here's an example. I don't know how many of you know the Lorax, but like if I was writing a thesis for the Lorax, it could go something like this. I'm going to read it one time through first. In the story entitled The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, the writer forwards a perspective of eco-criticism. Through this view, the ideal of industry is vilified by way of the antagonist, who is known as the Onceler. Conversely, the ideal of nature conservation is celebrated as embodied by the story's protagonist, known as the Lorax. With our current state of climate change, this message for the importance of nature conservation is just as significant today as it was back in 1971 when Dr. Seuss wrote this story. Okay, so that's another thing you can do, is like, who are the characters? What do they represent? But this is just one way. But mainly, what I want you to do is unearth not only what the ultimate takeaway message is from this, but also how the cartoon represents it. So let me say that again. So you're going to introduce the topic of what the ultimate message is, right? After you introduce the topic of what the ultimate message is, then you're going to make it clear that this cartoon presents that topic as an ultimate takeaway, and then say, how does it do it? Does it do it through the songs that you saw? Does it do it through the colors or some symbols that you saw? Does it do it through what's happening in the plot? I don't know. Some maybe symbolism. You tell me. How does it do it? And then say, just why is this ultimate takeaway message that you drew from it important? Why does it matter? So what, right? Make sure to answer that. So you're going to create a thesis for this. And that's the first thing we'll do, which is piggybacking off of the textual analysis lesson that we did last week, that we started last week. Next, oh, I got a beautiful one. Roald Dahl has always been my favorite writer ever since I was a kid. And we're going to look at a story from him. Actually, this reminds me, I'm going to include the link for the story here. I know that I forgot to do it here, but I'll do it. Do not fear. When you see this video, this will be the link for the story. You're going to love it. It's so cool. So after you do that, actually, you're going to watch this video because this is an example of like a sound machine in real life. It's like the closest I've seen to what the protagonist does in this story with the sound machine and what his vision is. So watch this video with my Lise. So first, for the discussion, you're going to cite, it's just like last time, so cite a quote from a story you feel is significant. What is this larger meaning as it relates to the story, and why is this quote significant? And this part, okay, Roald Dahl takes us into the magical world of sound. In this story, the main character, Klausner, builds a machine that can pick up sounds that exist beyond our own hearing threshold. How does this relate to the work of my Lise as seen in the linked video above? So make the connection between what you saw in the story and Klausner's project with the project of my Lise. How does that connect? How does that parallel? Remember to also reply to at least one classmate's post, since this is indeed a discussion board. All right, what do we have next? Oh, after reading it, takes us a little reading quiz. That's the easy peasy lemon squeezy one. So once it's fresh in your mind, it's just about reading comprehension. 5 points, 5 minutes to take it. That's what that is. Just take it right after reading it while the story is fresh in your mind. Oh, next thing comes our peer review workshop, and I'm going to go over how that's going to work. So first of all, I want you to write a rough draft for this essay. Not just a brainstorm, but a rough draft is actually you trying your hand at writing it. Remember, if you'll remember back from 1A, there's no such thing as a perfect first draft. It's going to sound crass, but you just want to just vomit out your ideas and just get it out, no matter how disjointed or all over the places. Just make that initial attempt. Just write your draft. Just write. I want you to write at least 2 pages of that. And it doesn't matter if it's not finished, if it's messy, if it's all over the place. That's part of writing, really. So make sure to do that. And you're going to upload your draft to this link by this Wednesday, April 13th, by 11:59 p.m. What I want you to do, after you've written your draft, I want you to write down some things that you want feedback on from your reviewers, because remember, the Canvas system is going to distribute it to 3 classmates to look at it. And, you know, maybe there's something that you want some feedback on, like a particular part. So write that for them. Please use only doc, docx, or PDF formats. Okay. Another thing, if you take a look at our announcements, I have just sent out a message with a video for showing you how it's going to look like from your end once you do receive those drafts. So how to access those. Make sure to leave feedback by Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Won't credit you beyond that, so make sure to get it in. In terms of points, how we'll do it is 5 points for getting in your draft on time, and then 5, 5, 5 for each classmate that you were going to leave feedback for. So leaving feedback for each of those 3 is 5. So 5 for having it on time, and 5, 5, 5 for the feedback that you leave to each of those classmates. I'm going to show you how to actually do the feedback. Before doing that, here's some things I want you to consider once you do get the drafts. Number 1, I want you to highlight your classmates' thesis. So here is where they have to establish just what they're being asked to do, right? Which is establishing just how Raymond Carver in his story Cathedral explores the topic of stereotyping, right? Take a look too at the paper's prompt to make sure that the draft is indeed aligning with these indications. Do you see any places in the essay that can be further developed are claims, opinions, analyses, supported by evidence from the story. So are they bringing in actual parts of the story to support them? Does the writer make connections to real life and address implications, which is so what, right? So remember, this essay is not only unpacking things you see in the story, but also make connections to how that parallels to the real world and real life, why the message that you drew from it is important. Okay. And yeah, so as you receive this, pay attention to the feedback request notes that your classmate left for you at the end of their draft. So once more for us, please post this by Wednesday, April 13th. And forgot to mention this, so exactly 1 minute after this deadline, so right on Thursday, April 14th, right at 12 a.m., the Canvas system will distribute these drafts, your drafts, for you to leave feedback on for your classmates. So watch the video to see what it's going to look like on your end. All right, what else is next? I'm going to show you how to actually use the tools that we have here on Canvas in order to leave feedback. So of course it is indeed too early here for us to look at the Chafee one, since I just assigned this, right? But I'm going to show you what we did with Citrus. So this is their workshop. This is what it looks like from their end. So let's go to here to SpeedGrader. Okay, let's take a look at one. There we go. Okay, we'll use Ulysses here. Let's take a look at this really quick. So this one, of course, is to maximize it. Now this is just about showing you the tools that we have here, okay? All right. This one is a little bubble. You can leave comments. Yes. All right, and you can play with the colors too. This is to highlight, of course. Here's the colors again. You can play with them. Here is a text box. Oh. All right. This one is if you want to strike something out. Let's pretend you read a line that is extraneous. Maybe it was repeated already. You cross it out. Once again, you can play with the colors. This one is an actual, it's like a marker. You can draw. Maybe something is super duper important or stands out a lot. And what's cool is that for every feature that you do, you have the option of leaving a comment. This part is important. Blah, blah, blah. All right, this one is literally a text box. Make a box here. And those are the tools that we have. This is to return to the cursor. Now, I want you to do two things, okay? Number one, I want you to mark up your classmates' draft, okay? Just like I've been doing, using these tools that we have here. Number two, so you know how in a face-to-face writing workshop, you don't just, with the comments, just go up to the classmates and say, here, it was good. No. You sit down with the classmate and you talk to them and you go over your feedback, right? So the equivalent of that in our online space will be using this comment box here. You can either type it out, say, this is blah, blah, or you could do my favorite, which is using this media option. Click this thing that looks like Google Play, and then you could just start recording. You'd be like, hey, Ulysses. Oh, another thing. It's helpful to actually have the draft with your feedback open on another web page so that you can have that as a point of reference. So you can record your video. Hey, Ulysses, I looked at your draft. Blah, 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 blah. This, that, and the third, right? If you don't want to do webcam, you just want to do audio, you go here where it says webcam. You go to no video and you can leave just audio. So whether you choose to type out the comment or do a video or do an audio, it's all good in the hood. So remember, get those drafts in by Wednesday, and 1 minute after, on Thursday, 12 a.m., the Canvas system will distribute drafts. And that is how we will be doing our workshop, my friends. Please let me know if you have any questions. Other than that, thank you for taking the time to view this video. I wish you a lovely week. See you guys next time.